Well, hello all you wonderful people out there in YouTube land, and welcome to the Texas Special YouTube channel. As you saw earlier this month, we already had the product review for the month. Doing a little something different. But pretty much all of my product reviews for this year and next year lined out, well, what I have so far lined out next year, are all rolling stock. That's cool, but I know there are some of you out there asking where the Locomotive's at. Well, here we go. I am going to, whenever possible, do quarterly Locomotive reviews in addition to the monthly rolling stock reviews. Now, as I said, that is dependent upon funds, availability, yada yada. What I have before you is a Atlas O Union Pacific GP60. The second locomotive we are going to review today is a Athearn Genesis number 4141 George Bush locomotive, as you can tell by the swanky looking box. We're going to start this off by looking at the Atlas O locomotive first, since it's already out of the box. Now, I do have the box here at the house. I happen to pull this off the railroad for this video. This engine is not mine. It is a loaner from a friend of mine and fellow Texas Model Railroad Club member. So looking at the side of the engine here, you can see it's weathered. Now, it did not ship from the factory like that, so I'm not going to touch on it a whole lot, although the owner of this locomotive did do a very good job weathering it. You can see all the piping, air brake piping features here. You've got the air cylinder for the air brakes. You've got very good detailing on the EMD Blomberg style trucks. Everything that you would expect to see is there. You've got the sight glass for the fuel tank. You've got the air compressor tank, the main reservoir. The hand railings on this engine are very beautifully done. The grills on the engine, this one here on the dynamic brake grid is see-through. These grills here are not see-through. You can see you have crew figures in the cab. All of the lettering on this engine is legible, even these itty bitty little 600 volt, high voltage warning labels. And you have the appropriate contrasting ends for painted ends for the hand railings, the pilot steps, and the coupler cut lever. Paint separation on this thing, the paint job is evenly applied. You can see all of the cast on details along the long hood and the cab and the nose very well. Very good paint separation, very crisp paint separation. Let's take a look at the nose of the locomotive. Okay, here we are looking at the nose of this locomotive. You can see the nice big Union Pacific shield there. This safety chain is an actual chain. You've got all of your MU hoses, your multiple unit hoses present on the front end of the locomotive, as well as the requisite snowplow. This is a Lionel electrocoupler. This engine is equipped with Lionel TMCC. So it has the Lionel electrocoupler, even though it's an Atlas model. Operating ditch lights, LED ditch lights, headlights are LED as well, and the number boards illuminate. Very nicely done, separately applied windshield wipers All the grab irons and stanchions are separately applied. And you've even got the big air line, the main air hose, the train line right there with the angle cock simulated. Here we are looking at the conductor side of the locomotive. This is where I spend most of my time anyway, sitting right there in that seat. Obviously not on these, on big 6-axle motors. I try to stay away from jobs with these kinds of engines. Nice separately applied handbrake wheel. Again, hand railings very nicely done. Main reservoir, tanks. The truck details are first rate. You have the bell over here on this side, an old school actual bell with a clapper. Not one of those new modern high-tech jobs. You can see some of the antenna arrays. The horn is right here. All of it is separately applied. And finally, here we are at the rear of the locomotive. No ditch lights, as most of these engines don't have ditch lights even in the modern era anyway on the rear of the locomotive. Some do, but not all. Again, you have the MU hoses here. The big air hose here for the train line with the red painted angle cock. The Lionel electro coupler on the rear. Again, safety chain is an actual chain. These grab irons here are all separately applied. Separately applied lift rings and sand filling nozzle. And here we see the top of the locomotive. Might be a little hard to see, but there are actually fan blades underneath these grills here. Same with this one for the dynamic brake. The factory paint is nicely applied, although the weathering obscures it. Get a little bit better shot of the various antenna arrays, the air conditioning system here, yet another separately applied grab on, and the sunshades, which I forgot to mention earlier. And this hatch right here. I've ran this engine a few times on the railroad, and it is an exceptionally well running locomotive in command control mode. In conventional mode, it kind of is jumpy. It takes off. It takes off quickly, and the throttle response in conventional mode is, if you're not watching it, it's very easy to send this thing over the edge on a tight curve. It will handle 036 curves. So if you find one of these and you don't have all you got's 036, that's your biggest curvature, don't think you're stuck out, because these will handle it. Alright, now onto the HO side of this quarterly review. This Athearn Genesis George Bush 41 Presidential Library and Museum unit. As you can see, it comes in this very nicely done box that matches the paint scheme of the locomotive, the Building America Union Pacific logo there. Open the box, you just lift this sleeve off, and you have your locomotive operator's manual, limited warranty form, some legalese. A Horizon Hobby limited warranty information leaflet. The exploded parts diagram for the locomotive. This is good for the Athearn Genesis SD70ACe and SD70M-2, which that is a NS thing primarily, and a detailed itemized list of all the parts on this locomotive, and a little propaganda form for signing up for, you know, whatever. Lift off that little foam sheet and you reveal a very well packaged locomotive. To bring this thing out in the world, all you do, you lift this out of the foam cradle, set the box aside, slide the plastic cradle the engine sits in out of this clear plastic sleeve, set that aside, and right here, lift this end up, and that unlocks it. And that frees the locomotive up to be taken out of the plastic cradle. Close that up, set that aside. Alright, we'll start off on the engineer side of this locomotive. As you can see, this thing has got tons of detail. Matches the prototype Union Pacific number 4141 to the rivet, damn nearly. Very well done paint job and loads of detail. Alright, so first off, we're going to start off with the large prominent George Bush 41 Presidential Library and Museum right there on the side of the locomotive. As you can see, that is a very nicely done lettering job. There is no cracking or flaking. There's very crisp and clear separation between the black and blue lettering and the white backdrop, as well as the blue, gold, and white and silver on this engine. Moving ahead to the cab. Again, nice clear paint separation between the white lettering and the light blue background. The Building America and Union Pacific shield is clearly legible, as is the presidential seal there on the battery box. You can see the ground light there, all the truck details. Pretty much everything is there. You've even got the contrasted edge of the pilot steps for safety. The only thing missing is the running lights that illuminate the actually working. If you look very closely, you can see that little triangle there between the bottom and second from the bottom step rung. That's the ground light that in the real world lights up the steps so you can see where you're putting your feet. The hand railings on these are very nicely done. They're a very flexible plastic that should theoretically tolerate, you know, typical handling that this locomotive would see going from the box to the railroad or vice versa. While we're back here, I forgot to mention the sight glass on the fuel gauge, or on the fuel tank there, and the fuel filling nozzle there, as well as the separate air tanks. And here we are looking at the rear of the locomotive. You can see a very beautifully done American flag, a separately applied handbrake wheel, the air compressor, or part of the air compressor system there. You have the exposed frame rail of the SD70ACe, a prominent feature on the locomotives. You have all of the truck details that are appropriate. You've even got the, I know it's really small and you really can't see it, but the journal bearing cover is even faithfully executed. And of course your air brake pistons and your air brake shoes in the proper spots. That grill there, that guy there actually is see-through. This one here on the dynamic brake grid is not. And you also have the little ledge, the little perch right here that early SD70ACes came with. Here we are looking at the head end of the locomotive. You got the engineer side, the conductor side, you have the MU cables, the big air hose, a plastic magnetic knuckle coupler. You have the electrical MU hose. Something a lot of people get confused when they think of MU hoses. These little hoses here are the MU brake hoses. These little hoses, this hose here, that's actually a big electrical cable called the MU cable. So you have all the MU hoses and the MU cable. Got the coupler cut lever here, non-operating of course. The Union Pacific logo on the nose. This is not a actual chain like on that GP60, but then again this is also HO scale, not O scale. You've got some separately applied rungs here along the nose in the appropriate places. These are generally the locomotives that I work on every single day, and after having been on many hundreds of SD70ACes, I can tell you that just about every detail on this locomotive is spot on to the T. LED, ditch lights and headlight, and you also have the sand filling ports right here. Separately applied windshield wipers on the front glass of the windshield and operating illuminated number boards. Here we are on the conductor side of the locomotive. You can see this grill here, that one and that one, as well as this grill here on the dynamic brake grid. They're not see-through. You can see a little bit better on this side the frame rail detailing underneath the side sill of the locomotive. Again, you have the very well done presidential seal. Another shot of the steps and the trucks. You've even got the sanding lines there for the sand if the engineer needs a little bit more traction. And the separately applied horn. Looking at the rear of the locomotive, it's pretty much identical to the engineer side. The only difference is no handbrake on this side. That grill there is not see-through, but again, that one is. And now here we are looking at the rear of the locomotive. Again, MU cable, the MU hoses. There is no snowplow, but fear not, that's normal on these modern big jacks. They don't really spend a whole lot of time running in reverse anyway, so it's not really a need for a snowplow there. Operating LED headlight. nicely done hand railings. I know it's hard to see, but there is actually the proper prototypical contrasted white to gray. Separately applied rungs and grab irons, and of course the coupler cut lever right there. And finally, the top side of the locomotive. You can see here the antenna array, the little GPS pinger. You can get a pretty good shot of the sunshades, exhaust stack. Coming back here, you see the dynamic brake fans, which these grills are see-through, and looks like you can see it on the camera, but if you can't, there are actually little blades inside there on the fan. This cooling fan here is not does not have a see-through grid. That is cast on. Overall impressions, this guy right here, very jumpy in AC and conventional AC. Definitely got to watch that. Otherwise, phenomenal runner. It'll pull this house off the foundation. It'll try to pull this house off the foundation if you let it. This guy here, I've neglected to mention it comes equipped with the Tsunami Sound DCC decoder, a dual mode decoder, so this is operable on conventional DC railroads, which is a good thing for me. Also, fun fact, if you didn't know it and you have a small railroad like I do, these Athearn Genesis 6-axle big jacks, they will not only run on 18-inch radius curves, but they will also stay coupled up to freight cars on 18-inch radius curves. Yes, even fairly sizable modern freight cars with body-mounted trucks. So if you have a small railroad or tight curvature, don't think you're stuck out, because yes, even you can run this. And you don't necessarily need DCC to do it. You won't be able to control the horn or the bell or any of the advanced sound features, but you can still at least run it. And it, as you will see here momentarily, it is a hell of an engine, and it has a hell of a good sound and sound system. So overall, definite winners. 100%. Can't say enough good things about them. Other than the jumpiness of the Jeep, great locomotives. The run videos for these will be separate, so keep your eye out for that in the next couple days.